I often use what I call the £10,000 conundrum. Anecdotally, we find that 2 out of 3 of them, if you offered them £10,000 to go and do a week's worth of school, they would find a way and push forward and find a way to be able to do it. The rules would be that they have to attend to all the lessons, but they could be nervous. They might even be a little bit upset about it. They might not necessarily be concentrating the best they can. They might need some extra support from some staff to get there, but they would actually, if there's a big enough goal, they'll push through. Now, obviously, schools don't have a spare £10,000, and I'm not suggesting it's a good use of time. But the point is, if you've got a big enough drive, you can find a way to do that. So then it's about how do we find that drive for students?
Hello and welcome to In This Together, the podcast where we talk to brilliant minds from across education and beyond to explore the importance of wellbeing in education. I'm Becky Dawson. I'm so grateful to have you with us today. Our goal is simple, that every episode leaves you with actionable insights to lead wellbeing in your setting. Whether you're supporting children, young people and their families, or looking after your colleagues and yourself, we're here to help you lead with impact and intention. And today, I am joined by the brilliant Seth Butcher. Seth does incredible work supporting a range of young people who may be struggling to access school for lots of different reasons. He's going to tell us a little bit more about the work that he does. But I followed him on LinkedIn, love his content and was keen to get him on. So hello, Seth.
Hi, good. Hi, Becky. Hi, everyone.
Really
Thanks
lovely to have you here, Seth. Yeah, it's great to have you. Thank you so much for giving us your time. So I would love you to tell us more about how you came to create Future Decided and your vision for that work.
Thank you. Yes, so Future Decided is basically it's an online platform where we're hoping to resource students, but ultimately all resource teachers so that they can raise aspirations. So my aim is this, that every young person has a compelling future to aim at. So this isn't like the old raising aspirations agenda of like how many working class people can we get to university. Unless that's the dream, then that's not really of interest to us. Or, how many girls can we get onto STEM subjects? And nothing like that. It's about making sure that every child's got a compelling vision to aim at, whether that's a job, a career they're after, a lifestyle, whatever that is. That's what it hopes to do. So it's really just at the beginning. It's resources that we've created over years, and I've used myself, but we're now trying to just make them available more publicly to other people. But also, it's a mindset shift really that we're hoping to bring into education, so that literally, I want this to become the default position where all students and all schools in time are helping them get a compelling vision for their life. And I mean, ultimately, the reason for it as well is just because it works. Like, students engage more when they've got a reason to go to school and when they've got a reason to kind of get up in the morning. They attend more, they enjoy it more, and staff do too. It's really, really encouraging to see staff when they get to ultimately fulfill what I would say is the reason why most of us get into teaching in the first place, which is like to make a difference, to go and make an impact, a lasting impact as well, beyond our lessons and beyond the time. That's what it does. And so it's something I'd love to say that I've known of this practice for years, but honestly, it's something that I stumbled into like after years of mainstream teaching and then leading an AP as well, where students without a vision just struggle more. So it's to the point where, sorry, just going on, but just briefly. So in my old tutor group, there's a girl in there. And I remember this is when it started, and she completely changed her whole demeanour towards school almost overnight. And it was on the back of the fact that she'd realised what she wanted to do in life. She wanted to be a midwife. In fact, I bumped into her in town a couple of weeks ago, and it was great to see her again. But and all on the back of that, she completely changed her whole mindset towards education, towards school. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to roll that out for more people. And so far, so good.
And it makes so much sense. And I know people listening will recognise that in young people, particularly those young people that may have lost their way a little bit, may struggle.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think, the challenge, I was involved in the Aspire framework, etc., and thinking about that, getting young people to university, which, as you say, is great for some young people, but not for everyone. You're alienating lots of young people where that's not where they want to go. And I think, what I love about what you've talked about is that individual approach. So it's not about a homogenous, this is what looks good for all of our young people. It's actually about what does this young person in front of me want. And I remember that, sometimes colleagues would be quite sniffy about the young people that were doing the mechanics or the plumbing course. And I would say to them, that young person is probably going to be earning twice as much as you in 5-10 years' time with those skills. We can't afford to be sniffy about that. There are so many different kind of careers and aspirations that young
Right.
people can have that we need to be supporting and focusing on. And that why is so important, isn't it?
Yes, no, completely agree. But I would also say, so about like your plumbers, I challenge students all the time, and this is part of the resources that we're creating, is to challenge them, do you want to be a plumber, or do you want to be the best plumber that your town's ever had? And would you like to own your own business? And how many people would you like to employ? And would you like to, have you thought about the type of house you want to live in? What kind of holidays do you want to go on? And how much would you need to earn to be able to get that? How big's your business going to be so that you get that? I don't think it needs to be like an academic route equals high ambition and high expectation, and anything else is like a subplot to that. It's like, no, we can twist it and be the complete opposite. And when you speak like that with students, honestly, they come alive. They can't believe the opportunities there, the difference that they can make. It's really, really, it's contagious when you try it. This is the thing. When you get going, it's contagious.
Absolutely. And it is really sort of that career sport. When it's done well, careers advising and careers work makes an absolutely huge difference to young people. We know, unfortunately, it isn't always done well. It isn't necessarily given the budget that it needs. It's not necessarily given the people that it needs to do it properly. But when young people are genuinely able to explore potential careers, that can make a huge difference. Like you say, someone might realise a career that they didn't even know existed. In fact, there are careers that when I was at school now that didn't exist, weren't even thought of, that young people can go and explore. And I think that's a really important part of what we need to be doing in education, isn't it? Is kind of highlighting that career. Is the careers work isn't just what you're going to do after school. It's how does that influence how you feel about school and how you engage with school?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So I always want, like, every child I want to work with to have an ambition. The ambitions might change, the dream might change, the vision might change over time, but always have something. It's those that don't have anything, they're the ones that like concern me, if you like. And so I remember going to tutor. So I would just left teaching, still working in mainstream schools, and I had a phone call from an ex-student, from the parent of an ex-student anyway, saying, daughter's gone to college, is not doing as quite as well as we'd hoped. It's going okay, but would you come and tutor? And languages was my teacher subject. So I said, I don't really tutor, but I'll come and do some sessions with yourselves. That's fine. So I went over, and the girl there should be like 16. She said, listen, I'm really struggling with my grammar. So the first couple of sessions, I'm trying to be really diligent. We'll help you with your grammar. That's fine. And then over a couple of sessions in, I realized it's motivation is the real problem. And it is hard as grammar, by the way. I'm not denying that, but it's motivation to want to learn, to want to go. I can give you multiple websites where you can just repeat. But what you need is a goal. And so we sat down, and for the next couple of sessions, we looked at a vision. What do you want from life, and what do you want that to look like? And I can't remember the exact details, but I remember she suddenly decided that she wanted to own a flat in Budapest. She wanted to get married. She wanted to be able to have enough money to be able to buy certain fashion accessories. When she was older, and we sort of made a list and started to cut stuff up. Now, on the back of that, then all of a sudden, learning French grammar was fine because there was a purpose, there was a drive, there was a point to go in. But it was through those conversations, and it was only a few sessions in when said to the parents, "You don't need me anymore. Like, keep going with that vision. Here's the websites you need. You really don't need us, because what you needed is a spark." And I could tell you that story multiple times over with different students of different ages. Generally, the secondary age. I think primary students most of the time believe anything's possible, and I love that. It's usually around the year 7 when you realise life's a bit more tricky than you thought it was, and you can't become, a butcher, a baker, and a candlestick maker in the whole life span type thing. So it's usually around that. But yeah, if we can get that, it makes such a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk quite a lot about that importance of finding your why. And I know that you work extensively with young people who are absent from school, who have, for lots of various different reasons, aren't able to attend as much as they would perhaps want to or are expected to. Why is it because they don't just see the value of being there, or is it that we're failing to connect school to their actual futures? Is that something you see, a connection between that attendance and that motivation and that why?
I think partly, I think there's loads of reasons why students are struggling to attend. You could be half an hour on that alone, I'm sure, particularly post-COVID. But I do know, all I know is this, that when someone's got a reason to attend, they'll push through the difficulties. So whether the difficulties is anxiety, or whether it's kind of friendship difficulties, even bullying or anything like that, I'm not belittling all of that. It's really important that we kind of, as a school, as a society, we kind of look to address that. But if you've got a reason to push through, you will do. And the analogy I often give, and it's a silly one, but I often use what I call the £10,000 conundrum. And so I often say, and this is anecdotally, this works, and it works with colleagues from regionally I've spoke to as well. I often say, listen, hypothetically, the students that are struggling to engage or struggling to attend school, anecdotally, we find that 2 out of 3 of them, if you offered them £10,000 to go and do a week's worth of school, they would find a way and push forward and find a way to be able to do it. The rules would be that they have to attend to all the lessons, but they could be nervous. They might even be a little bit upset about it. They might not necessarily be concentrating the best they can. They might need some extra support from some staff to get there, but they would actually, if there's a big enough goal, they'll push through. Now, obviously, schools don't have a spare £10,000, and I'm not suggesting it's a good use of time. They probably don't have a spare £100. But the point is, if you've got a big enough drive, you can find a way to do that. So then it's about how do we find that drive for students? And what I've found working extensively with different schools is the model to tackle the, can we call it the kind of attendance difficulties around at the moment? I was going to almost call it something else, but it is. There's a countrywide, isn't there? Sort of something systemic is what I was trying to and ah about saying, but it is. I think it's a systemic difficulty around attendance. And what I find is schools, even the schools that are doing really well and having like great effect in this, all of their interventions, or all of their interventions are around making things slightly easier rather than giving them vision to go for more. So the analogy I use for this is, Becky, imagine you've got a climbing wall. You've been to a climbing wall, presumably. At least you've seen them anyway, right?
I've been up them. Thank you very much.
Have you been up them? There you go. I've even more than me then. I've looked at them and thought, no, not from. But imagine you've got a climbing wall, and school attendance is like a climbing wall. It's a lot easier to go down, obviously, to fall than it is to go up. So you got that analogy. Now picture at the climbing wall, at the very top, you've got a magnet, massive magnet that pulls you up. And at the very bottom, you've got a magnet that pulls you down. And let's say that both magnets have a power of 10, whatever that means. But, the same amount of power. So most schools, when they're trying to design interventions and ideas, they look at that bottom magnet. What's the things that's pulling the student down? And let's look to reduce that. So they'll say, hey, let's get you onto a reduced timetable. And then your bottom magnet will go from a 6 to a 5. And that's good. And then they might say, hey, why don't you come and use these entrances and start a bit later and maybe use a different PE changing room? And then it might go from a 5 to a 4. And that's good. I'm all in favor of these sort of interventions, especially when they work. Then let's get you a key member of staff. Maybe it goes from a 4 to a 3 and they're going down. But what they're ignoring is that the top magnet, and that top magnet that's where your aspirations is, that's where your drive is, that's where your ambition is, your rewards. And actually what we've done is we've reduced the bottom magnet, so we've reduced the anxiety, we've done everything else, but we've failed to give them like a reason to push through in the first place as well. And it's that top magnet, that's the one I'm trying to target, that's the one that we're trying to get schools to consider more of, like, what can you do more? So students are going, it is difficult. I have got anxiety. I have got difficulties going on in my life, but I'm going to push through because I'm desperate to get that flat in Budapest, with and that spare money so I can buy some cool clothes. Because that's how it starts. Or I'm desperate to go on, become a builder and become self-employed and work for myself. Or I'm desperate to get to university and to get onto this certain course so I can go and educate myself and go further. But it's around that. And so I think that's part of the reason. And the other real big strand that I've found at the moment is we've got a whole cohort of students who I don't think existed a few years ago, not in the numbers that they do now anyway. I don't think a cohort of students existed years ago. And this cohort of students are students who have like a high view of education, but not a high view of school. So they struggle with the concept of school. They struggle with the idea of school, but they really want it to like education and think that education is the gateway. They just hope to be able to gain education through another way that's not school. And I'm not talking about elective home education. I'm talking about kind of, something outside of the system, if you like. And they're tricky to kind of engage. But what I've found with those is I ask them this one question. You like this one? It's like this, like, what do you need to become a nurse? What do you need to become a nurse? Whether they want to become a nurse or not, they go with it. What do you need to become a nurse? And they'll all say, well, I need a degree and I need some A-levels and I need some GCSEs. And you say, brilliant. Okay, I need A-levels, GCSEs and a degree. What else? And of course, the thing we're asking about is like, you've got to have the ability to be able to deal with tricky situations. You've got to have the ability to get on with people. You've got to have the ability to get on with people you don't always like. You've got to have the deal to follow instructions. You've got to have the ability to deal with stressful situations as a nurse. And I think a lot of that is learned in school, in that kind of environment, that school environment, alternative provision, or special school even, but in that kind of like environment when you're with others. So yeah, lots of reasons why, but I think there's so much that can be done.
Yeah. And I think just to pick up on a couple of points you've made there, that you've really highlighted brilliantly that vicious cycle that we often get caught in education when a young person is struggling to attend. be that for reasons of send or mental health or a mixture of both, or lots of different things that are going on for them. We tend to focus on the things that they can't do. Like you say, we focus on what can we remove to make you be able to do those things. We don't tend to focus on what they can already do. We don't tend to be strengths based.
Right.
I mean, lots of places will be, but I think we can fall into that trap of, you aren't attending, your grades are slipping, you're not doing this, that and the other, rather than what's your potential, and in fact that kind of leads me on to my next question, because you've got a brilliant phrase which I really love, which is that you advocate for redefining greatness. So we're looking at going beyond just test scores. I would love to hear more about what you mean by redefining greatness.
Yes. Thanks, Becky. So I really believe that all students are what I say wired for greatness. I think all people are wired for greatness, that we've got greatness in our hearts, that we actually, somewhere deep down anyway, there's probably some religious connotation, I don't know, but like everybody wants, like, is created for something great. We're capable of great. And so I do want to redefine what greatness means. And not that test results are important in that progress is important and qualifications are great, because qualifications, generally speaking, provide opportunities. So I'm all for qualifications in general, but it's kind of beyond that. I want to help students find their lane and then thrive. So if you think of, I don't know if you're a coffee drinker, I love coffee, but when you go to a coffee shop and you get someone that makes that cool coffee art, it's like, it doesn't cost you anymore, but it just looks great. That's someone that's found the lane, that's loving it. They probably don't need to, might not even, but they just enjoy doing that. So you've got to find the equivalent of that for everyone. And so I remember working with a year 11, this is relatively recently, so I'll have to be careful how much information I share, if that makes sense. But if I just give you the broad brushstrokes. So there was a year 11 student not been to school for years and years and years for various reasons, in trouble with the law, and in quite a bit of bother. And so I went over to go and meet with them, and I said one thing. I knew they were interested in money because they'd been earning money illegitimate ways, not been going to school, and that's what got them into trouble. So I said, hey, I heard you into money. What if I found you a way of earning money, but in a way that you could sleep at night with peace, and you could put your head on your pillow knowing that someone's not going to kick your door down? Can I carry on speaking? So I said, okay. I said, great. So just humour me a little bit. I said, what would you do if you could do anything that was legal to earn money? Forget about how to get there, how realistic it is, or anything like that. What would you do? I said, I'd love to be a site manager down in Southampton. Well, that's so specific and so niche. That's great. That's like half my work done. So I said, that's brilliant, right? I said, so tell me about that. What would it look like? How many people have you got working for you? What kind of car you're driving? What does your average day look like? So he's giving me all these ideas, and his carers are there kind of looking, going, we've never heard this before. This is fantastic. So we're going through all of that, and I said, hey, there's just one problem with all of this. What's that? I said, well, you're not a builder yet, and so you don't know whether the work that your team are doing is of good quality. You also don't know how long it should take them. You want to tell them, when you say go and build a wall down there, you want to know it should take them 3 days and that this is the quality that it should look like. What you don't want to say is, I don't really know. So I said, so you're going to have to become a builder, aren't you? Let's become a builder. Let's work on becoming a builder just for a few years, and then you can go and become a site manager down in Southampton. He said, okay. I said, right, so we need to get to college. Now, my aim was always to get him to college, but I wanted to build it up a little bit. So you've got to get you to college. He said, okay. I said, there's a problem with that, though. You haven't held a pen in 6 years. And I said, I know you're not daft, but you need to practice holding a pen, because otherwise that's going to feel weird. And I don't want you to feel weird when you've got other peers looking around. So what if I just sent a tutor over to your home for a couple of days a week to get you rewriting, re-holding the pen, redoing some of your English? We're not going to get exams. I'd love to get your exams, but that's long gone, I'm afraid. We've got far too much to catch up. But let's get in that routine. Let's redefine what a win is, if you like. Let's try and get into that routine of holding a pen, doing some basic maths, doing some basic English. And at the same time, I'm going to get the tutor to keep talking to you about Southampton, because I want to know more about that dream. I want to know more about what that looks like. Let's keep going with the Southampton, and they'll also help you apply to college. We did that, and at the next review, there was again, I've got to be careful what I say, but there was lots of services there, including the police, including law enforcement, everyone else like that. And it was negative, 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 negative. One positive, the first positive they'd had in years. He's thriving in education. He's got a real dream for his future, and he's desperate to get to college, to get this planet. And everyone was gobsmacked, and no one knew how it happened. And genuinely, I don't think it's because it's anything genius. It's just giving somebody a chance to consider, what does the dream future look like? What does a compelling future look like? Not just, I could maybe become a builder. It's like, that's not exciting. I could become a builder that employs 30 people, on a building site. Now that's exciting. The driver's a Mercedes, you wanted and all sorts. That's exciting. And on the back of that young man's life so far has changed, and he's made it to college. It's fantastic, just on the back of aspirations. That's what I want for every single young person in the country, Becky. Every single one.
Just a small ambition there, Seth. I love that. And I think it's just so powerful, and it just shows us it's those conversations, it's staff having time, and that's a real challenge, isn't it? We know in the education system, staff having time to be able to have those conversations that might not feel directly connected to the work, the academics, but are the thing that's going to give that motivation, that magnet at the top of the climbing wall. And that's the challenge we can sometimes find, isn't it?
Yes, staff, they do lack time, but I guess my pushback to them, but like respectful, because I have so much respect for the school staff, and for the period of schooling that they're in at the moment. Everything's stretched. There's no money. There's more trickier sort of behaviour to manage. There's all sorts of stuff going on. But my pushback to them is like, they'll find time for the things that are really important. I've been watching people doing some great like revision sessions for over the holidays or over weekends or residential stuff. Amazing, like creative thinking. I love all of that. But the point is, if they think something's important, they'll manipulate time. They'll find time for it. And I think this is so important. And I think when they find that it works, they'll realize it is important too. And so, I mean, the resources that we make, and they are created to be able to be done in tutor time or in citizenship time, in assembly time, in PSHE revision days. Like they fit within the school curriculum. But even beyond that, whether you use our resources or you just do their own thing to raise aspirations, I think it's just about making that time. And one of the greatest things that definitely everyone can do, like start immediately, is what I call corridor conversations. That's like, we're always up, especially for those on duty, because duty is a bit boring if not. And for lunchtime or break time duties, it's that corridor conversation. So can we tell you about a young lad called Charlie where this started? He was my first one, and since then it took off. There was a young lad called Charlie, and I thought I'd test it on him. This corridor conversations ideas was years ago, and he was a nice lad, but not massively ambitious. So he wasn't completely disengaged. He would be the quiet student that we kind of goes under the radar. That sort of typical student. So I met him in the corridor. He walked past and said, "Hey Charlie, what do you want to do? What's your ambitions when you're older?" I said, "Oh, I don't know, Mr. Butcher, I don't know." And sort of I said, "Hey, go on, think about it and let me know when you've thought about it. I just want to know. I'm just intrigued. Just give it some thought." Came back about a week later. He said, "Oh, I've thought about it, Mr. Butcher. I think I'd like to become a baker." He was year 8. I didn't know whether that was a good job for him or not a good job. I didn't know much about his personality, but I love the fact that he had a vision and a bit of a dream. I wasn't trying to be his careers advisor. That needs to happen maybe later on, but I just wanted him to have something. And he started to try and walk off thinking I'd leave him there. Little did he know me, as if like that was enough. I said, "Hey Charlie, do you reckon you could own your own bakery?" He said, "Oh no, I don't know." I said, "Well, just think about it. It might be yes, might be no. Would you own your own bakery and maybe employ 2 or 3 other people with you to help?" Now he came back about 3 days later, massive grin. He said, I could own my own bakery." He stood 10 foot tall, and he was like, "I could." I was like, "Good on you." I said, "There's a problem, Charlie. There's always a problem. There's a theme here, if you can see. There's a problem, Charlie." He said, "What's that?" I said, "Your bakery is so popular that you're now going to have to open up a second bakery in the other part of town because you're just too busy. They're queuing around the corner because you're making the best cakes, the best bread. Could you do that?" He said, "I could do that." I said, "Brilliant." I said, "What about the 7 bakeries?" I said, "Oh, I don't know." So just think about it. You don't have to say yes. You have to say, just at least would you think about it? Came back a few days afterwards, yes to 7 bakeries, and walked off big grin. And I don't know whether he'll become a baker when he's older. It was almost irrelevant. But the fact is, he went from no vision to all of a sudden believing he could own 7 bakeries and grow that kind of business. And maybe he's not really a businessman. Maybe he'll go to university. Maybe he'll go and whatever his plan is. He stood 10 foot taller. He engaged more in lessons. He started to attend more. Everything transformed on the back of that one corridor conversation. And so I'd encourage all school staff, start that corridor conversation or the yard conversation. You don't want to take it too literally, but the idea of just 2-3 minutes, you could grab hold of someone and you could genuinely transform their life, I think.
I love that. I think there's lots of research that says when young people have someone that believes in them, that makes a huge difference to their self-esteem. And if we go back to those young people we talked about earlier who maybe haven't attended school for a long time, or are struggling with attendance, then self-esteem is one of the kind of the key factors often for them to not feel able to do those things. And I think when you do take that time to have that conversation and believe in them and think about what those step, and I think what I love about what you're doing is you're also highlighting those stepping stones, aren't you? You're thinking, you know, with the young man with the site manager, well, that's fine, but then we've got to go back to this stepping stone and think about how do we kind of build those foundations to reach that dream. And that feels like, I think all adults in education can have those conversations. You don't have to have special skills to be able to do it. It's like you say, it's 2 or 3 minutes in the corridor. It's when you're stood, what in between lesson changes, it's that those quick. And I love the way you invite them to come back to you. It's not like give me the answer now. It's like go away, think about it, and come back, and you show an interest, and that makes a huge difference, doesn't it?
Yes, the main thing is this: give them vision. That's the thing. And one day I'm going to write a book, Becky. You can be right, hopefully soon as well. But with that, give them vision. That's the one thing you do. What we tend to do is we give them half a vision and tell them how to get there. But it's not that compelling. So we say, hey, you want to be a baker? Brilliant. There's a college down the road that does a bakery course. Well, that's okay, but like they're not that excited about becoming a baker at that point. Or you want to go to university, but why? What's the dream beyond that? You know, or you want to hold this. So it's give them that big vision. Let them dream big. Let them expand out. Help on work with them so they can discover, is that really the dream future? So I have like a formula that I use with them. I say that a young person's dream future is this: it's the passions plus the desire, and the two have to match. So the analogy I often give is, imagine someone's really into cars and the passion is to, I don't know, one day own a Ferrari, right? That's because that's where it starts when you're young. We're thinking like, you know, big picture, but it's usually just, I want to wear those clothes, I want to have that car. And so say you want to own a Ferrari, so then does your desire match that? Because if your desire is, hey, I'm willing to work, I don't know, 7 days a week, or put 5% of my wage away for X amount of years to be able to save up for one, or, you know, put myself through university to become a doctor maybe for 7 years, or, you know, or something along those lines, then your passion meets your desire, and so therefore your dream future's on. Sometimes what happens in those conversations is say, I've not thought of that actually. Yeah, maybe having a Ferrari actually isn't really my dream then, because I don't really want to go through all of that. It's not that they're lazy, it's just not for them. And that's fine. It's like, so what is for you then? So what would that look like? And once you can kind of workshop what that looks like, they can get there. And I explain it a lot more in a course. I've got a free course online. People head to the website, futuredecider.com. It's called the Dream to Destination course. It's free. They can access the basic content there, and it talks about your passions plus desire for any students or any you know, staff and everything that's interested. Definitely do check it out. But the Dream to Destination course is that it helps them figure out what do they want from life, what's the dream future, and then helps them map a way to actually make it a reality. It's encouraging and it's great.
Brilliant. I think if we think about it as ourselves as adults, I know that I am much happier and more focused and work better when I know where I'm going, and I've got that focus and I've got that vision, and I'm happy, and my desire and my passion kind of match up. It makes perfect sense that works for us, and yet we sometimes forget that we need to do that for young people. We sometimes assume that they want the same things that we want, so going to university, for example, or, you know, getting this job or that job, and we can be a bit dismissive sometimes. Like if a young person says they want to be a footballer or an influencer, we can be a bit, oh, you know, everyone wants to do that. But actually, how do we hook onto that and say, what is it about that you love? What is it about that you're interested in? How can you kind of focus that passion? Because you never know.
100%. So we speak to people that want to become footballers. I say, okay, so what's your relationship like with risk? Because if you don't mind risk and you're up for the high risk and you're really, really, really like determined, give it a go. But you've got to know your odds are against you. I get that, but some people succeed. What you can't say is I want low risk and also to become an influencer or professional footballer. It's like, well, something. And for the influencer ones, we get this a lot from schools. They say, well, I like the idea of it, but like they all just want to be TikTok influencers, and then I just want to discourage them because it's nothing. But I say, but get them to be an influence in a certain area that's actually like useful. So could they become a great chef, and through that great chef work kind of become that? Could they create great clothing ranges? And so let's work on that one. Let's work at the business acumen. Let's look at the design behind it, or let's look at something. So they're not just famous for famous sake, so to speak. Which very few people are, let's be honest. Most people are famous for something great they've achieved.
as someone who's trying to do things on TikTok, it's flipping hard. So it's not as easy as the adults seem to think. You just hold a camera up and go, oh, and it's done. There is so much more to it than that. So all power to them. If they do actually become famous TikTokers, then that is a skill in itself. Well, Seth, thank you so much for today. I feel inspired and feel ready to go and face the world. So hopefully that's what you're doing for your young people as well. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. Thank you for sharing. I think what I love about today's chat is we've got some tangible things, those corridor conversations, that redefining greatness, finding your why, just tangible things that all staff, form tutors, classroom teachers in primary can do with their young people. So thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
And if you're listening, we would love you to follow us on your podcast platform. If you feel able to give us a rating and review, that would be wonderful. It means more people will find out about the podcast. And we think these are conversations educators need to hear. Don't forget to drop us an email if you have any thoughts, comments, questions, or want to share some brilliant work that you are doing for wellbeing in your setting. Just email teamwellbeing@twinkle.co.uk.